Absolutely.
reasons to get out.
Very cool. Hey, Tommy, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Good. Are you still gainfully employed?
My contract ended last week,
Okay.
so I'm searching again.
Okay. Well, we need to work on that. Hawkeye, how you doing, man?
What's up?
Where are your beautiful automobiles?
Right there.
Yeah.
That's my E26.
There you go.
So apologies in advance. I had surgery a few hours ago. I'm on hydrocodone, so I've asked you to check my pet's temperature or something weird like that. Chalk it up to the
Okay. That's good information to have. Thanks, Franklin. Ranjan?
Hey, Rob, how are you? I'm in a car, so.
You looking good, man.
Finally got a haircut.
Hope you're not driving and talking at the same time.
No, I'm parked up.
Yeah. He can multitask like the best of them. So
Yeah, we don't need to have you in the Zoom meeting meme page for look what I did while I was in the Zoom meeting.
that's great.
Where's our guest of honor?
I don't know. I talked to him about an hour ago, and he was, excited. So he may be doing some last minute preparation.
All right.
Yeah, we had a 18th birthday for one of my daughter's best friends, and so their parents surprised her by having a drive-by of about 30 cars that went by and drove through their circular drive and wished her happy birthday and honked the horns and made lots of noise. So I said, okay, let me just park up while everybody's still standing socially distant and talking outside.
That's great.
Cynthia is new on the call. Cynthia, why don't you introduce yourself? Show your video. You're on mute.
There he is.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, John. How you doing, man?
Very good.
Good. Hey, Mr. Dan. How are you, sir?
Not too bad. Hey, Rob, how are you doing?
You're looking good. Blue skies behind you, man.
Yeah, my ambitions to be part of an animated, series, I guess, with Toy Story there.
We can always hope. There you go. Good job. So
I'll try out some other backgrounds along the way too.
you look great. It looks great. So, hey, Paul, I can't see your face, but are you out there?
Yes, I think I am.
Okay, good. That's good. You've got a face for radio anyway, so we kind of appreciate the
Well, now you know why I don't show it.
just teasing. So
Not pulling any punches there.
Yeah, for the new people on the call, Andy and Cynthia, hey, normally the hazing only starts after you've been to a couple meetings. So, and Paul is one of our inspiring speakers and has been a long-term participant of Tech Leaders. So, but I think we're going to probably have people joining us, but I thought we might try to start promptly there. So, everyone, welcome to our May version of Tech Leaders. If this is your first time participating, really there are two basic components of the Tech Leaders Forum. One is the socialization piece, where people get an opportunity to network and get to know industry peers and build relationships. And the second part of it is content, where hopefully we have, professional content that's geared toward the business-minded information technology leader. So it tends to be more at the business level, use case level, than necessarily in bits and bytes. So everybody welcome. In terms of housekeeping for the group, our expectation is we're going to go at least one more month virtually on Zoom. But I am trying to promote as much interaction and group involvement as humanly possible. A number of y'all have received texts and emails from me with introductions, and if you haven't, you will in the future. So our intent is not to lose momentum with the group, is kind of keep this thing going as we're in this in-between stage of social distancing and still shut down in some cases. So I really appreciate everybody's enthusiastic participation in the Zoom. So without further ado, I want to introduce Jon West, who is our esteemed speaker and is the second time, and as a matter of fact, we've gotten a lot of feedback that he's been one of the favorite speakers to tech leaders. So I appreciate Jon's willingness to do this twice. Jon is a principal with Vercey Blockchain Consulting, and he's also a fractional CTO. He's got 25 years of software development, product development experience. Started off as a software engineer and architect, and then worked his way into the executive leadership side of information technology. Most of his career, he's focused on cloud-based SaaS products. And for 2 years, he headed up the blockchain R&D effort for Thomson Reuters. Currently, he consults for large corporations, software vendors, help them understand and apply, blockchain and cryptocurrency concepts. He advises several blockchain startups, and he has his own startup as well too. Jon speaks both locally and internationally. He is the tri-chair for the Tech Titans Blockchain Forum. He chairs the Accounting Blockchain Association, and he leads the largest Dallas blockchain meetup. And he also serves as the blockchain committee on the blockchain committee for the Dallas Startup Week. So very impressive background, and obviously a lot of focus on blockchain, but he's also one of those kind of guys you need to meet personally, because he's as good a person as he is an expert in blockchain concepts. So without further ado, Jon West.
Thank you, Rob. That was very kind.
Yeah.
It's good to be presenting again on my favorite topic, which is, I guess, not surprising based on the number of times that Rob said blockchain. I probably have to fix my bio there a little bit. Maybe there's too much blockchain in there. But what I'm thinking is I'm going to do a little bit of a review, just a few minutes on what was covered the first time. But in a nutshell, I believe that, and I think this is already being proved out in the market, when it comes to blockchain, the biggest use is around tokenization, securities, money, cryptocurrency. The amount of money, the amount of progress that's being poured into that far outweighs the non-crypto, non-token use cases. Now, those other use cases are definitely valuable, and there's a lot of effort and money being poured there too. And I kind of divided it into two categories. It's what blockchain. I mean, I always say blockchain and crypto because most people understandably have this really poor taste in their mouth about crypto. It's deserved, but it's really two things that are happening. It's putting the trust layer in place for the internet, and the value layer, the money layer, the spend layer in place for the internet. And the spend layer, the money layer, that's where all of, or not all, that's where most of the work is happening. That's where most of the change will come from, is that side. So that's what I talked about last time, and trying to, make the case for why there's going to be trillions of transactions, trillions of cryptocurrency transactions of all different kinds, just whatever gets tokenized. So I'm going to turn my video off in case while I'm sharing anything bad happens with bandwidth. And if you do lose me, Rob, just go ahead and text or call me so I don't continue talking.
Okay. I muted myself because I didn't want to interrupt you there, but I'll keep you on track.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so from a review perspective, real quick. You know, I always a lot of times when I start this is like, yep, you have reasons not to like it. But when you're in this every day, all of this stuff is getting fixed. So set it aside for a second. And then we talked about a use case, an example of selling content on the internet, an article at a time for fractions of a cent. And kind of went through what that looked like. But then it's really like, well, what are some of the other use cases that would result in trillions of transactions? And we talked about some of those. But really the key point is, I always use the iPhone as an example, but digital currency, cryptocurrency, the token part of blockchain, this technology, it's like the iPhone. When we first got the iPhone, we didn't know what it was going to be. We thought it was an expensive way to, you know, text people or do a little bit of email or something simple. And it got a lot of criticism. So it radically, the whole mobile, it just radically changed. And I think blockchain is even bigger than that, of course. But that's how you got to think about it, is even though we can't see it yet, there are a lot of things that we can't see. And the reason is, and this is what we talked about too, it's like, well, what's the difference between this cryptocurrency, token, digital currency that today's digital fiat can't do? And it has very definite examples. The fees, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about today in a specific example, and the immediate settlement we're going to talk about. But it has these advantages, and that's what people are starting to take advantage of. And then you talk about governments. It's like governments at first, we thought, or they appeared to struggle with it, to hate it, and they actually embrace it and pass and are trying to figure out what regulations to pass to get this inside of their borders. So brief review of where we were, and now the goal is to talk about a specific example, or some specific examples, some work that we're doing at NCR. Make sense so far? Any questions? Okay, so what I have here is a demo that's recorded. And so NCR, National Cash Register, it's a large public company, 6 billion revenue, global. They service banks, digital banking, kind of consumer banking stuff is half of their business. And then their commerce is the other half, split between retail and hospitality. Definitely have been impacted by COVID and really focused on trying to help their customers as best they can, you know, get through it and deal with it. But they do, on the commerce side, you know, like 300 million transactions a day run through their systems. So it's a lot. And what this demo is it's something that we did. And there's really two things here. One is cryptocurrency, and the other is this thing called self-sovereign identity. And the two really blend nicely together. They complement each other because, and it's really easy to figure out why. It's because what we're doing is we're digitizing, taking the next step to digitizing a wallet. And your wallet contains money, the ability to spend money, you know, make payments, and identity. And if your wallet was big enough, it would contain a whole bunch of identity stuff. If you could carry around your, you know, your degree or your birth certificate or your passport, or, you know, just to have it in case for when you need it. There's lots of stuff, credentials that you would carry around, identity stuff, but you can't because today it's inconvenient. But so there's those two parts. They really complement each other. They're both in here, and they both use blockchain. So, and by the way, I guess identity is an example of using blockchain I mean, you need a crypto, but in a non-crypto way. So we're touching on that too. So this is a demo that we created for to show off and go public at NRF, which is the largest retail conference in the world in New York, and then EuroShop, which is the largest in Europe. And there's like over 100,000 people that go to each one of these, just to show kind of what we're working on and what's coming. So, Rob, shake your head if you can hear me. Okay. So I'm just going to play this and walk through it. What I'm going to show is this is a self-checkout, and someone can walk up to a self-checkout and say, well, I want to check out, or they could say, I want to buy crypto. And here's my wallet over here on the phone. So this top one is called Gemini dollar wallet. This should say Gemini Euro wallet since we're in Europe for this one. But I'm going to add crypto to that. I'm sorry, it's not a Gemini wallet. It's a Gemini Euro coin. It's a stable coin. And this, what we're really focused on is stable coins, because with stable coins, we can get the advantages of crypto without the volatility. And there's a lot more appetite for spending using stable coins. Bitcoin is, people are less likely to spend it, except the people that have a lot of it. And it's harder to spend because it is still volatile at this point. But so what I'm doing here is I'm walking up to a self-checkout and I'm saying, well, I'm going to convert some fiat to crypto. And we'll talk about why. The first thing I want to do is just show you the demo, and then we'll talk about why, because we have a chicken and egg problem. Because it's like, well, why would retailers want to accept crypto if consumers don't have it? And why would consumers want to get it if retailers don't accept it? And so we have to solve both of those simultaneously. And so the first thing I want to do is just kind of give you a demo of the functionality of what's possible, and then we can talk about why and some specific use cases that aren't really shown in the demo and that kind of stuff, how this basic functionality can be used in different situations. So I'm walking up to a point of sale. I want to buy crypto. I want to buy a stable coin. I say buy stable coin or buy crypto. I scan this QR code and it says it's ready to load. I'm going to say I want $10 worth, which should be a euro symbol because I'm going to put of cash. I'm going to use cash. I'm going to put 10 euros into the cash tender module, and then it's going to say $10 inserted, and voila, I've just purchased crypto. So it's simple. And the question should be, well, why do we want to do that? We're going to come back to that. So now I'm over at a manned checkout instead of a self-checkout. And these could be interchangeable. We just did the buy, crypto at the self-checkout and the spend at the manned checkout. So this screen represents the checkout screen, the cashier operating. And this screen really should be turned around facing the other direction, facing the consumer. It's the consumer screen. So the phone and this represents the consumer and this represents the cashier. So I'm going to start checking out, buying stuff. And the first thing I'm going to do, okay, so before I had my crypto wallet app open when I bought crypto. Now I have my identity app open. We want these two to be together, but today the tech isn't together. And the next step is for us, we're actually this summer going to bring it together into one app. But for the demo, I have to have two. But the first thing I want to do is just like you enter your phone number when you first start checking out, or you scan a QR code or whatever, for loyalty typically is what it's for. But I'm going to scan this QR code, and what it's going to do is challenge me on my phone and say, hey, NCR wants to connect with you. Do you want to connect? And I'll say, yes, I do. And I have to authenticate. Now, in this case, I just had a simple 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 password, but really authentication would be facial recognition or thumbprint, so that we know it's you and we can be sure. But what I'm doing is I'm establishing a connection between my phone and the point of sale system at the beginning. This is a secure, private, authenticated connection. So the point of sale doesn't have to know, who I am, anything about me. It just has to know on the other end that I'm talking to somebody's phone, and that person has authenticated to their phone, and I can trust what I'm about to receive. And this is the self-sovereign identity, decentralized identity, adding the trust layer to the internet. Today in the internet, you have peer-to-peer communications. It's really powerful that way, exchange of data, but you don't really know, and it's hard to tell who's on the other end, and it takes a lot of effort. This is adding that to the internet to say, okay, in cases where I need to know who's on the other end, I need a really easy, good, safe, improved way of doing that. So I have this as private as I want it to be, secure, authenticated connection. So the first thing that I gonna add here is an age-restricted item. And so the first thing we show is, okay, wait, I've added an age-restricted item, or I've scanned an age-restricted item, and it's saying you have to verify your age. And so it prompts me on my phone, and it challenges me. And it's essentially asking a question: are you, over 18, or are you over 21 in this jurisdiction? And I get challenged with that, and I get asked, do you want to prove that you're old enough? It's not sharing my date of birth or sharing my driver's license or any of that. It's actually doing a zero knowledge proof. That's just answering the question in a very trusted way. So I say, yep, I will prove my age, and that will come back to the point of sale. And now I'm going to total it, and I'm paying with crypto. So in this case, I would have to tell them, and they choose the crypto tender type. And now I'm switching here to my crypto wallet, and I have to scan another QR code, which is bad. But once we pull these two together, you wouldn't scan another QR code. It would just prompt you, do you want to pay? And then I would use my phone. So I'm saying, yep, I'm going to pay with that stable coin, that Gemini dollar. And I need to bring up my scanner to pay that, and then it's going to pay. So now that's done, and now I could just walk away and leave. And what's going to happen next, you can see if I go into my identity app, I can see I added a connection. I proved my age, that I could buy something. And now I receive a electronic receipt. And this is no typical electronic receipt. So we want to massively scale the use of electronic receipts. And the problem is that electronic receipts today are very cumbersome, but also if you really started using electronic receipts, they have to be tamper-proof, because the bad guys would start really manipulating, creating receipts if they were really used in a useful manner. And so what we're doing here is we're sending this receipt in what's called, it's a verifiable credential, just like as if the, I was talking about before, your identity. My wallet actually held a credential in it that represented my driver's license. That's how I proved my age. So the state or some third-party verification issued me a credential that I could use to prove my age. Well, we are issuing a credential that represents the receipt. And so now you can take that receipt and you could, if you return the item, the store could say, okay, you'd scan the QR code to establish the connection. The store would say, challenge me for that particular receipt. And I could say, yes, you can have it. And the store then can check, okay, who issued this receipt? And do I trust the issuer? And has it been tampered with? They know for certain that this is the receipt and it's not been tampered with. Or that receipt could be a little bit smarter and it could say, if I bought a TV, it could say, do you want to register this, manufacturer registration, or even purchase a warranty? And if I say yes, that would open a connection from my phone to the manufacturer. Manufacturers want this type of connection to the consumer, no surprise. Consumers can decide to give it to them, or consumers can decide not to. It's totally in the control of the consumer. But very easy to register. And not only that, after I register, if I call, the manufacturer doesn't know, I don't have to give them my name, address, any personal information, but they're gonna know that I own one of their TVs. I could accept offers from them. I could accept an offer to buy a warranty and those kinds of things. So this identity lets you establish these individual connections, and you actually can use multiple identities, DIDs, decentralized IDs, so that people can't correlate things if that's what you want to do. But it's also a very trustworthy, authenticated identity. And it starts to, you could use it at work, use it at, with your school, use it with the government, use it with the utilities, online, banking. We're working on use cases in the banking industry with this. And then you have these things in one place and can cross industries.
Hey, John,
Yes.
in terms of having multiple identities there, could you do, if you're a small business owner, have something that's dedicated, hey, everything you purchased for your business would be under identity A, and then everything you purchase personally would be under identity B? Is that feasible?
Yeah, and really I should even state that more clearly. It's not that you have multiple identities in a bad way of I'm trying to be multiple people or multiple organizations. It's really like if you're an organization, actually an organization could say, like if you have a business that has an identity, it can grant rights to you to act on behalf of that business. Or it could grant rights to someone else in your business to act on behalf in certain ways. But what it does is it says, when you are I can have a different identity with this retailer, this store, and I can have a different identity to the bank. I use a different ID, and to my utilities, I use a different identity ID. They don't know, if I want, they don't know that I'm Jon West who lives in Addison. They just see me as 3 different people, and they can't correlate it unless I let them correlate it. Make sense?
So, John, wonderful demo. Thank you. A question, if you can answer?
Yes. Yep.
From a retailer perspective, this is great from the consumer perspective, but from a retailer, I'm actually losing a lot more information, right? So why would I want to consume it?
Yeah. So actually, you'll probably end up getting a lot more information.
Okay.
Because what this is this is actually because by the nature of humans, if you ask for consent to say, hey, will you share your data with me? in exchange for offers and discounts and cashback or whatever. Huge percentage of the population says yes. Now, but what this does is it also helps the merchant or anybody with privacy regulations and even just the privacy culture changes that we're seeing. People want to know what's happening with their data. They want to be able to consent, and they want the option, and actually from a GDPR or a privacy regulation, you have to have the option to revoke the share. That kind of stuff is built into this standard. And by the way, I didn't mention that this isn't just proprietary technology. This is standard technology being standardized at W3C level type things. So it isn't that vendors and businesses and such are going to have to support, you know, one vendor who does this. It's supporting the standard that vendors are implementing. But anyway, but yeah, theoretically, so it's giving, in the case of receipt data, actually it's, I'll show you a picture too that represents this that I think will help with this question. So today your identity is all over the place. You put your identity with the bank, with utilities, government, education, social, medical, shopping, commerce. You give your identity to these places because you have to interact with them. And then they give you a user ID and password to access it. That's our system today. Where it's headed is you own your identity. It's not in these silos. And you use that one identity to authenticate everywhere and even to control your personal data. And then you can share it where you want and you can revoke and you can see where you've shared it. So that might be a better way of answering the question.
That's helpful. Thank you, John.
Yep. Now, and the goal is to get rid of honeypots. So you break into here, not get rid of them, but reduce them. You know, you break into here, you hack into here, you get access to millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of records. In this model, decentralized identity, you have to break into 100 million places to get access to 100 million records. It won't be that clean because, like I said, people will share and we will have, you know, we will continue to have honeypots, but they won't be as sensitive. Any other questions, comments so far before I go on to some of the whys and use cases?
John, I know it's a huge question, but as far as this decentralized identity, what's the progress towards that, and what's the near term? I mean, is this something that's 10 years out? It's a pie in the sky, or is it something that's coming together soon? Or
yeah, there's already there's definitely been lots of pilots, and there are some things that are already in production on a small scale. The banks are, I think the banks are surprisingly going to be one of the first movers on this. And the reason is, and there's actually already several actual production pilots underway in the banking industry, and there's a lot lined up because they have a problem of authenticating their customers. When the customer calls, it's a game of 20 questions, and the bad guys are getting better at answering the questions than the customers. And it takes a long time and it's expensive. And with this, you call your bank, they ping you on your phone, and they, you know, do something like, are you, you know, in a conversation with Sally at the bank right now? And you say yes, you're authenticated. Then you take that, you can authenticate that, you can single sign on, authenticate to online banking. You can authenticate at the physical bank building. And by the way, COVID is also pushing this authentication mechanism because it's contactless, touchless. And people don't want to, you know, they don't want to forever take your driver's license into a sanitized, you know, disinfectant cloth and wipe it while they're looking at it. They just want to authenticate. But you walk into a bank and you scan a QR code and it challenges you, you know, do you want to authenticate yourself? Yep. And immediately on the other side, your account comes up because you're authenticated, type of a thing. So there are some simple use cases that use this, that are starting to use this tech. When will it become 10 years, you know, it's 10 years out where it's really nice and, you know, people have just, you know, a few apps and use it everywhere and that kind of thing. Or 5, I don't know, 5 to 10. What other questions? So why? Some of the, I'm gonna skip through these really quick and then I'm gonna talk about some use cases. Go through these really quick, but reducing costs and time to authenticate, I just talked about that. Identity theft, cost of KYC AML. In fact, banks are also, you get KYC'd AML'd many times during the year. And the people that are doing it spend a lot of money doing it. They want to share that. They want to give you a KYC AML credential and maybe you KYC AML, you know, depending on what you do or whatever, once a year or twice a year or something. There's regulation hurdles right now and liability issues, but that's what people are really pushing for. I think the UK probably will be the first, they're the furthest along in that space. Slashing transaction fees. We're seeing transaction fees in crypto as low already in production at 0.5%, the base layer, or 10 cents per transaction. Merchants are really starting to, this is really starting to capture the interests of merchants. But we can also, cash is a big deal, and improving loyalty in general, improving revenue with the crypto and identity and that combination of the two. That's another key driver. There's costs of cash, payment fraud, chargebacks. We don't have chargebacks with crypto. We can guarantee no chargebacks. And it's because they're so little that it's easy to guarantee. And part of it's because it settles right away and you can't claw it back. And it's also that we know who you are, so you can't say you didn't make it. And you can't make a purchase with someone else's thing. So these things start to, and privacy compliance, if you're using identity, for a company, it's a lot easier, less costly to be regulatory complying with the privacy regulations because it's built into the technology from the ground up. But the user experience that it provides too, when, especially, and COVID is putting a lot of pressure on this. Actually, at NCR, we were more focused on accepting crypto. So it's really, you know, being able to buy crypto, being able to spend crypto, and then being able to walk in and, you know, get fiat. You know, here's some crypto. Give me back some. I need some fiat. Give me back some fiat. We were focused more on that, and COVID is kind of versus the identity piece. And now we're changing to focus more on the identity piece because of the streamlined process it can give. So if you think back to that demo, when I established, you know, that connection between my phone and this point of sale, everything I do, everything I need to respond with, communicate with. There's no physical documents that need to be exchanged, verified by humans. It can all go back and forth, boom, 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 and there's no touch. That is, from a consumer perspective, they like that. And you can have your loyalty, your coupons. I don't have to track loyalty cards anymore. You know, we're even taking this to the point, there's companies, Backed is one, where you can use your loyalty points and spend them as cash because they exchange it, type stuff. So
John, what about the security of the Wi-Fi between those two devices?
it's not Wi-Fi. It's actually going over the internet through a secure, it's almost like you're using a VPN, literally. And it's sort of like, from a standards perspective too, when you have multiple, you know, vendors involved, you can kind of think of it like email, where, because you have these messages essentially going, and it's like the standards being developed for the interoperability, just like the SMTP type standards between, you know, these types of providers. Those aren't developed yet, but they're being worked. And so when you use this today, you're kind of stuck to a vendor who is using as many of the standards exist because the interop standards aren't there yet. But it's essentially a VPN, that connection that you have. Trustoverip.org. Check that out. Was that Michael that asked?
Yes, thanks.
Yeah. Check out the Trust TOIP. It's like, you know, voice over IP. It's like HTTP, HTML over IP. It's trust over IP is what this tech is. And there's layers of stack and governance. It's, I think, fascinating. Okay. So that experience, increasing foot traffic and touchless. So that is the, the kind of the, I guess the presentation part. The next thing is, okay, those are some of the whys at a high level, but what are some more specific use cases? And maybe I'll tell you about, I don't know, 3 or 4, and we can be done, or maybe 2 or so. What are we at? We're at the 40-minute mark, Rob. So here's an example. So one of the things is we thought, okay, merchants actually don't like cash. Cash is more expensive than credit cards. But big merchants especially, they can have as many as 40% of their customers are still using cash today in the US, and in other countries it can even be higher. But most of those people, a lot of those people actually, they're not using cash for privacy reasons. They're using it because that's what they have. And they have, you know, retailers also have paper check cashing services now. Just, you know, they're starting to disrupt the, you know, the small check cashing services. But I can, if I'm somebody that receives a paper check, and today I can get a bank on my phone, you know, these neobanks, these challenger banks, but I can scan my check, cash it, and instead of depositing it into a formal bank where I don't want to, or I don't provide enough KYC, or I can't get a bank, I can convert that into stablecoin. So now I have crypto on my phone. Now I can walk into a retailer and I can buy stuff, or I can pull out fiat. I can also remittance is on our list, and crypto has actually done a lot to disrupt remittance already because of the lower fees and just the convenience. So now these stablecoin providers, we've been working with Gemini, but there's like 4 or 5 big ones. They are, when they set up a stablecoin, they're also setting up that stablecoin in other countries. So I could walk into a retail store with my cash, or cash my check on my phone, get stablecoin. I can send that stablecoin to my family across borders, they can walk into a retail store, spend it, or they can walk in and pull out the local fiat. That's one kind of set of use cases. The other thing, that when you convert a cash customer to the phone and to digital cash, what you also then have, you're also a lot more likely to convert them into a loyalty customer. They are going to be more likely to join loyalty because they're on the phone and it's easy and it's right there and it's a click of a button. So that's how loyalty can increase. And it's actually, in that case, it's good for both the retailer and the consumer. The consumer gets discounts, the retailer gets actually loyalty and more visits, which essentially is more revenue from that consumer. Those make sense? Those are some of the initial cash kind of use cases. Any comments or questions there?
Hey, John, quick question. So when you talk about exchanging for a local fiat, is that similar to, I guess, from a concept standpoint, are you talking about exchange rates? Or I thought in blockchain, everything sort of gets neutralized to, you eliminate the complexity of exchange rates and FX and all that stuff.
No, you have to deal with exchange rates in that scenario, because really what we're doing is we're using a stable coin that is essentially fiat represented as a token. So you are dealing still with exchange rates.
Okay.
But that's all hidden from, and it's a lot cheaper. But anyway, there's another example of a credit card and even what Starbucks is working on, and you know, a captive consumer in a stadium, people that just want to invest in crypto, you know, traveling globally. It's very easy. You know, you're not carrying multiple currencies, those kinds of things. So we've gone for 45 minutes. So I think that's probably a good place to end, or if there's any final questions or just even comments. I mean, does that make sense? Does it seem?
It does. Why don't we, if we have, do we have 10 more minutes, kind of have Q&A or comments or whatever?
Hey, John. I've listened to you speak many times. I appreciate this today, as always. Going way back to the beginning, can you give a couple of examples of what you described as non-token, non-crypto use cases or implementations?
Yeah, the self-sovereign identity, the identity stuff that I was just showing is kind of non-crypto. I mean, you're doing a transaction on a public network, so you have to pay for the transaction with crypto, but you're doing more than a crypto transaction. And there's very little blockchain actually in that identity piece. And it's really, the blockchain piece is, it's disrupting certificate authorities, centralized certificate authorities. And it's handling, if you know, I mean, the distributed key management. It's distributed public key infrastructure. So it's being able to validate, and it's getting rid of man-in-the-middle attacks and those kinds of things. But you're not using a lot of blockchain for that. It's just a transaction by the person that issues the credential, so that their public keys are out there and can be checked, and the revocation needs change. But when you're doing all of the, sharing the identity, and none of that involves blockchain. But that's an example. Another example, I think the best example, main category of blockchain is, today you can find where there are parties that each have a copy of the data, and they each have a copy of the data because they do not trust a central party to have the data, and they have to reconcile that data monthly or whatever. They are operating a blockchain manually. That's the perfect use case to do for a non-crypto blockchain, is where they're operating a blockchain manually. And an example is like a syndicated loan. 10 banks give out one loan to, one $10 billion loan to one company. And they each keep their own records about it, because they're never going to trust somebody else to do it. But then they have to reconcile. and they're reconciling manually. Blockchain can
And honestly, we have several people in the syndicated loan software business in this group. I don't think anybody's here today, but that would be, potentially a really good use case to develop with like Maynard Honor or some other folks that are involved in that type of industry segment.
Yeah, Five-Cert. Is it Five?
Finastra.
Finestra.
Yeah.
They actually have developed this. Are they from Finestra?
Yeah. He's the head of their. He's a pretty active participant in the group. He's not here today, but he's their head of the software division. So yeah, he's in charge of all that. Y'all need to hook up, and I'll make sure I'll introduce y'all over email. I think you've met a couple times.
They've already developed it. That's where I got the idea.
Yeah.
Another example is just phone companies around the world. They're constantly having to keep track and pay each other when people go between networks, and they're each maintaining the data and they're reconciling the data.
I would think insurance companies would also be very interested in that, because there's so many times when somebody screws up somebody's insurance records, and then they're just hosed for a long time.
Yeah. I'm not familiar enough with the insurance company if they have the multiple copies being maintained, but there is the insurance industry where you have to follow regulations and you have to prove stuff. So it's sort of the proof of it. Like a real simple example, there's a company that if you take a picture, you want the camera that took the picture to hash the photo, store the hash on a blockchain so that no one can later modify that picture. So that's good in insurance. It's good. That's actually happening on the border, the US-Mexico border, on those cameras.
Hawkeye, some of the non-financial blockchain applications are what fascinate me with what we're working on at the Big Green Dot. One example that has been proposed is a car leasing company leases you, like that big car company in Dallas, D&M Leasing. They lease you a car and you're like, God, I'm going to quit making my payments. And instead of a lease agent trying to chase you around, we just use a smart key to turn your car off with your cryptocurrency tag, which incentivizes you to finish paying your lease. And another really neat one I thought about when I was thinking about these artists throwing their digital art out on the internet is you can use crypto to encode inside your art so that people can't take your artwork without your permission. So it's like, it's still financially related, but a little more indirect than transferring funds between two people.
Yeah, I think we will have, when you right click on an image in the future, if you want to copy it, it'll cost you fractions of a cent.
Yeah, I do video production on the side. Rob probably knows about it. And for the last 13 years, all of my video has a fingerprint embedded in it. So if you pilfer it, all you have to do is play it on the internet and I can chase you down and you can't remove it from the image without destroying the image, which is kind of cool.
You don't need blockchain for that though, right?
No, it's just, it's embedded in the camera, but it was,
that's just.
But blockchain takes it even a step further because it can prevent you from even taking it to begin with, apparently. I don't know exactly how that works. I'm reading a presentation that I just got last week, as a matter of fact.
Yep, cool. I'm not familiar with that one either.
So John, what about in manufacturing? How can blockchain play there? Like the example you just heard from.
Manufacturing. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know manufacturing well enough. I guess it's, if you are, there's the supply chain, but manufacturing, I think it could, like if you resell manufacturing equipment and you have to prove maintenance records, the manufacturing process, if there's something that you have to log during the manufacturing process and people don't trust you to log it. And so you want to prove that you did log it and the logs are accurate. That might be a case.
Healthcare records.
Healthcare records are, yeah, I mean, I'm not, yeah, yeah.
I could give you some use cases one day.
Okay.
Yeah, I've studied healthcare records where you can bundle it up and it's essentially like stored in a blockchain cloud, and you can give people access to whatever piece of it they need.
Well, and I have my mother's going through some things between Tulsa and MD Anderson, and she's constantly got to take her book. And they keep adding pages to the book and going back, and then she travels back and forth. It'd be much easier if they just could share.
Yeah, what they would do.
She could grant access to one doctor to look at, yeah. So but then that would mean she would have to own them and authorize access, which is something that isn't quite there yet.
Right. That would be like when the doctor that gives her exam would then afterwards say, okay, he would issue a verifiable credential. It's like part of her identity, and say, I'm signing this and giving it to you. And because he's signing it and because of the text, she can't manipulate it or change it or whatever.
Right.
But then she can decide later to share it, and someone else can verify that some other doctor signed it. And it's when they do the verification that they actually use the blockchain, when they do the,
Oh, you mean like maybe if they had the COVID-19 vaccine, right?
Yeah, that's been talked about a lot.
Yeah.
You know, that centralized healthcare records, I'm looking at a instance I can't speak about publicly, but I can talk from personal thing. I had a minor outpatient surgery event this morning, and they came in and with a big old thick chart because I'm 60 years old and said, you've had this, 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 this. And I went, no, 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 and no. And said, what, it's on your chart? I said, yeah, but those instances are 40 years old. And they said, well, it says you're chronic this. I said, no. Where'd you get that? Well, we got it from your PCP. I said, well, I saw her a month ago. She just went over my record. That's not in what she has. And so now I'm wondering what version of my medical records are in some cloud somewhere that's got data that's just bogus, where this vendor name I'm looking at has a blockchain-enabled decentralized cloud storage platform that offers some security, transparency, and downtime protection. So it's the centralized blockchain. You still don't, unfortunately, own it, but you have control over it because it's in one place. So I think there are a lot of neat technologies beyond just the finance, but I think the finance transaction will push this thing into the mainstream sooner than I think later.
I agree.
Anybody else have any additional comments before we kind of shut her down? Dan, you've been kind of quiet out. You still out there?
I am. Yes. I have to admit, I have been doing a little parallel processing. So, but I am here. So, and always enjoy the conversations. So thanks.
It's always good to hear John's presentation. Appreciate it, John.
Yes. Thank you, John.
It's good to see everybody.
Good to see you,
Very
Nancy.
welcome.
See you too, Nancy.
Yep.
Until next month, stay safe.
Do we have to?
Yeah, do we have to stay safe, or do we have
want
to?
to see you on here. We want to see you on here. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye now.
Bye, everybody.
Take care, Nancy.
Bye,
Bye,
thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Steve Surratt, thank
Thanks.
you for joining us.
Thank you.
John.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, John.
man. You did
Rob.
great. I really appreciate it. So
Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thanks, John.
and we'll get an invite out early next month for our third Thursday. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Thanks, Rob and Judy, for
You're
hosting.
welcome.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. I can't figure out how to put my video back on. Thank you, John. You did great tonight.
Hey,
Thank
John,
you.
thanks, man. We'll
Okay.
we'll abbreviate the introduction next time. So
No, it's good. No, it was good.
I shut
Yeah,
my video off, and I don't know how to put it
I
back
mean,
on.
and honestly, I think we could have talked about this for 2 hours. I mean, because I was going to bring up the healthcare thing, and I think it's really, it's a great topic. So
Yeah, I'm not as I don't spend as much of my time either in the non-crypto space at this point, except for the identity piece. I'm not as versed in it, but I know the basics.
Also, I'm going to be. I'll send out, or maybe Judy, you can do this. Let's send out an email to Maynard and John. Y'all have met at the place over. The Texas place where we've done the happy hours.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, but
yeah, we'll catch up to him.
You need to meet him. He's a good guy. Finastra is just they're at located Plano Parkway and the Tollway essentially. So just
I've had them speak at the meetup that I run, and they've also trying to think of the guy's name. He's French.
Oh, I know him. I can't think of it right now, but I've met him. Yeah, I've met him.
Yeah, he's their technology leader, and they've also presented at Tech Titans. But yeah, they're doing very interesting, appropriate work.
Yeah, his boss's boss is Maynard, so that you met. So
okay,
I can't Geoffroy or something like that. I can't think of it yet. So
yeah,
Jean
Claude, JC, Jean Claude, JC.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, well, very cool. All right. Ranjan, you still out there?
I still am. I'm trying to figure out I've never done it on my phone. I always do it on the computer. So I'm trying to figure out how to leave the meeting.
Well, hey, we can leave you so you don't have to worry about it.
Exactly.
Kill the app.
Yeah. Y'all be good now.
Okay.
Hey, and let's touch base late early next week, Ranjan, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I've got some information as well. So yeah, let's definitely talk, please.
Okay.
Thanks,
man.
Bye.
John, I appreciate it. Really do.
Yep. Thank you.
So like I said, hey, we'll need to do that social distancing beer sooner rather than later.
Sounds good.
And I'll shave for our next meetup here. So
I don't know if I will. I might.
I can't see. You don't look as grizzly as I am. So
I think I'm more grizzly.
I don't know. It doesn't show as well. So you got a better, a worse or a better camera. So
yep.
Judy, thanks. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. This is fun. I'm glad you're keeping the team together here.
Yeah, we need to. Yeah, we keep this thing going. So thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
All righty. You have a good evening.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.